Hello everybody, it's Jen May here from May Dynamics, and today I'm doing the second in a series of live videos, and I wanted to talk to you about how you can launch a business in 4 days. I know it's a very ambitious timeline. This is based on the assumption that you've already run a business, that you've set up yourself, and that you're confident in most of the terminology, what it takes to run a business, and you're comfortable with doing a lot of the things yourself that you may sometimes outsource to other people, or of course you've got the ability to outsource them quickly. So we wanted to run through this exercise because May Dynamics is all about efficiency in business, and what's more efficient than being able to launch an entire service business in 4 days. So the reasons you might want to do something like this, if you've already got a business, perhaps you want to diversify your products or services, especially with the risky time period we seem to be coming into. I think a lot of people are questioning their business models for whether it's exactly the right thing they could be doing. Secondly, you might be looking to change what you do. Perhaps again what you do isn't quite working and you think it's time for a change. Or lastly, you might just want to add a new source of income, a new stream of revenue. And those are absolutely fine as well. So I'm going to quickly, my eyes are going to be darting to my crib sheet behind my phone a little bit today because there's a lot of information to cover. So I do apologise for that. So the first thing is you've got an idea. Absolutely, you have to start with an idea. And then the most important stage of the whole thing is to check that idea. There's no point whatsoever ploughing forward with everything it takes to create a business if you haven't tested that your idea is going to be worth it. So we're going to run through in quite a lot of detail the 3 areas that you would check. Hello Cletus, it's lovely to have you here. The 3 areas that you would be checking to make sure that your business is viable and how to go about it. The first one is looking at yourself. So if you're going to be trying to create a business in 4 days, we need the fast track route here. So you need to be looking at your experience. Don't try to do something you've never done before. It's never going to work. But rely on your experience, your contacts, your network. Hello Gary, nice to see you. Focus on your strengths. If there's something you're particularly good at, passionate about, this is the time to really push that forward. And then building on that, what is your point of difference? This is the time when you really need to leverage your brand. So for example, for a team like Gary and myself, my brand is about efficiency, it's about process design, it's about customer experience. And Gary's is very much around the safety and security that comes from the self-defense side of things that he does, as well as the development and automation of process. Secondly, it's time to research. You've got a great idea and we all know how exciting it can be, but you really need to check that it's going to work. So first of all, look at the market. Is anybody actually going to buy your product or service? If great, if yes, continue. If no, probably pause it right there. Secondly, look at the competition. There will probably be people out there doing something similar to what you're doing. Look at those people, pay particular attention to their service, their customer service, how they treat their staff as well, their pricing, and also their strengths and weaknesses. The fantastic thing about this is you're launching out of nowhere, so nobody can see you coming, which gives you an enormous competitive advantage if you're going to try to disrupt a market or something like that. Thirdly, look at the financials. Make sure you model these. Look at your costs, your revenue projections, what's going to be required to make this a financially viable business. And again, if it's not going to work, just stop at this point. There's probably no point spreading yourself too thin for no gain. And then lastly, just talk to friends, advisors, people in your network. There will probably be, hello Peter, nice to have you here. There will probably be people that you know who are around and are possibly prepared to give you some advice or insight into something if there are a few questions that you have. And lastly, what are the principles that we need to apply when we're looking at a new business? Well, the first one I would suggest for what we're talking about today is you need your model to be based on when and who your customers buy from, not if they're going to buy. So if you look at, for example, what May Dynamics and Dynamic Krav Maga do, we've both got if products. These are things that people need to invest in. They need the time and the money and the belief that it's something essential. Whereas, as the shops have proven this week, toilet paper is always going to be needed. So it's just a case of, do we buy 16 rolls on Wednesday or do we buy 107 rolls on Thursday? Secondly, MVP or minimum viable product. Now this is really important. You're not going to be able to create something perfect in 4 days. It's never going to happen. So don't even try. You need to work out what the absolute minimum is that you can put out into the world so that people have confidence and that you've developed a prototype which is going to be able to work. So building on that, create something scalable. When you go into this, make sure that whatever you design is not going to limit you in what you can achieve in the future. Yes, you can improve upon it, that's absolutely fine, but you don't want to have a wholesale change of what you've designed. Fourthly, make sure you're protected. So if there's one thing that's the most important thing to get right, I would say it's compliance. Things like your registration, your legal entity setups, how you operate, if you need licenses, if you need to secure trademarks and domains, these are absolutely vital. And lastly, this is a principle I developed and I love to talk about all the time. It's called same thing, completely different. So what you're trying to do here is to make your life better, not worse. You don't want to go from working a 50-hour week to working a 90-hour week. So create something that from the beginning is streamlined, it's automated, and it's managed by exception. So you want to be aiming for 80 or 90% of the traffic through this new business to go through without being touched. And only certain touch points actually have to be manned. Okay, so we've got through the first couple of points, the idea and the check. Now we're going on to the design. Now, the design is reasonably simple. It's just trying to work out how your business will actually work. My preferred way for this is to get a very large piece of paper or preferably even a whiteboard and just draw it out. Keep drawing lines, questions, crossing throughs, whatever it takes, so that you can really show that this thing comes together. Think particularly here about your process, about the actors who will be involved, about the systems that you're going to use and rely on, and about the resources that are going to be required. Once you've got your design, you're ready to start planning. Now, the planning phase is pretty important, but we're going to do it quickly. This is very agile. It's what I like to call nimble rather than agile. So we want to spend a few minutes creating a high-level project plan that's going to assign our task to the team and also help us just keep on top of the milestones, dependencies, and exactly what we need to do. So what I suggest is create a parking lot and stick any specific small tasks and any issues that you come across on there so they can be addressed and don't get forgotten about. And then when it comes to your project plan, split it up into 5 main areas. So the first one here is your setup and your compliance. You've got your process. Your third one is development of your systems. Your fourth one is finance. And your fifth is marketing. And then just to go through this in more detail. So setup and compliance, we're talking here business registrations. You hopefully have an ABN, but you'll need to register a business name. You'll need to make sure that you're good to go, that you've got your domain secured, that you're fully compliant, that you've got insurance in place, that your working model is legally viable. Secondly, your process. So again, this is your design of how things will actually work, but also you need to start thinking here about your procedures, your policies, things like what happens if a customer cancels. You need a cancellation policy from day one. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be something that you can fall back on. You need to make sure you're legally protected here as well. So things like non-disclosure agreements, non-poaching agreements, those sort of things come really into play here. Thirdly, development. So this is the actual setup of your system, making sure that all your data is available and that the data flows are planned out and that your links are in place so that if you need to one part of your business to talk to another one, that's all readily available and understood. We are lucky, I have to admit, at May Dynamics because we have a developer, Gary, who works with us, and he's a service mate partner. So this, to be honest, is probably the biggest crux problem for most people. It can be very difficult to develop a system. Leverage one that's out there. If you need to, pay somebody to develop your idea to fruition. And yeah, you should be able to get something going pretty soon. Fourthly, the finance. Just make sure from the beginning you've planned for your payments in, your payments out, and your accounting system, so that you're fully compliant when it comes to talking to the ATO and all of the other financial obligations that you will have as a business. And then lastly, marketing. So here is developing a brand. It makes a huge difference if a business has a recognisable brand from day one. It gives a sense of reality and legitimacy, which you do not want to launch without something. Secondly, presence. Make sure that you are, again, available on certain social media channels, possibly in print. Ideally, you want to be able to blitz the market here, but do what you can. There's Facebook, websites, LinkedIn. There's all sorts of places you can quickly and easily get a social media presence up and running. And then your calls to action. I'd suggest that from day one you focus on making sure that they are as strong and as simple as possible. Okay, so that's it. So we've split up what we're going to do. Make sure that you've given the right tasks to the right people. Again, play on their strengths. You know who's good at what. And then over the next 4 days, work together as a team. So people will need to do things independently, but you absolutely need to be able to collaborate, rely on each other, and know that a good job is getting done everywhere. And then that's really it. It's just making sure it happens. It takes hours, it takes dedication, but it's only a few days we're talking about. When it comes to launch, just launch it. Again, it's probably not going to be perfect. You're not going to expect perfection in 4 days, but if it's good enough, then that's a really good start. And what you'll find is that you've streamlined maybe 6 months of normal planning and development into a few days, simply by setting yourself that stretch target to do it. So, hopefully, I've inspired you all to think, actually, starting a business in 4 days is something I could do. I've had an idea lurking for some time, and I think maybe now's the time to go out and do it. I have to admit, Gary and I have been testing this theory for the last few days, so hopefully very soon we'll be coming to you with our own 4-day business, and I am looking forward to when we can announce that to you. I thank you so much for watching today, and we'll speak soon. Bye everyone.